What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with a very quick intro before we get into a fantastic podcast with the one and only Mr. Grant Hughes. We had to call an audible mid-podcast. We still gave you close to, I think it was like about an hour and 40-something minutes of podcasting, but we had to punt on, we normally record 2 podcasts at once and then do stat padding. Grant was in some back pain, so we will have this hour and 40-minute podcast where we're bouncing around the NBA, talking Knicks, Raptors, Hawks, Suns, Clippers, Bulls, a lot of interesting teams. So we go in depth on those. And then on Monday, I'll have a shorter episode up where Grant and I will actually have some just stat padding specific stuff. But just want to give you a note. We didn't get to guess the players this week. We will get to those next week, not for the Monday episode. Just again, Grant was in back pain. We didn't want to go through the second episode. And although he did offer, but I just wanted to kind of shuffle him off and hopefully he can heal up. So yeah, with that, let's just get into some nice hoops talk with the one and only, the thermonuclear AF, the certified fantabulous, Mr. Grant Hughes. What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale coming at you with my certified fantabulous thermonuclear AF, hobbled AF as well, co-host Mr. Grant Hughes, who is powering through some back pain with us today. And so I very much appreciate it. We're here to just bounce around the league, talk about some teams, some trending matters, rumors, news, what have you. Before we get started, please remember to subscribe if you have not already. Hit the sub button on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts. I've seen that some of you have left ratings and reviews. Shout out Be Rich on Apple. I really appreciate it. Continue to throw those ratings and reviews on Apple and ratings on Spotify. They do help us move up the charts a ton. And if you've done those things, tell people about us. Promote our tweets or that we're putting on, or that I'm putting on Blue Sky, like the promotions, share those, tell people, text your friends, family members, enemies, acquaintances, coworkers, just tell them about the Hardwood Knocks podcast. We really appreciate it. And follow us on the socials. They are all on your screen or in the podcast description. And finally, join the Discord. That's the best way to get involved with the mailbag, have some discussions. You can hear about, maybe Grant's back pain. You could see a Hardwood Knocks carpet in my office if you join the Discord. Just lots of, you could hear about what is Dan going to eat when he's allowed to eat again. You might even see pictures of what Dan's going to eat if you're in the Discord. There's lots of stuff going on in Discord, not the least of which, actually the most important of which, is all our loyal listeners for whom we are forever grateful. They drive those discussions in there, and you guys are all, honestly, I'm a smarter host for having read and listened to some of the rebukes that people have to some of our opinions. And so get in Discord and yell at us and maybe make Grant and I a little bit smarter, or at least myself. Grant, how are you doing? I can't tell if you're smiling or grimacing.
It's a little bit of both. I am standing up. This is the first in the Hardwood Knocks legacy, a stand-up podcast. Because we're a couple, I think of you as a stand-up guy. I'm literally standing up because I have only stood or laid down today, other than I sat down to eat dinner, hurt my back. But I do think it gives a nice perspective, anyone that's watching, because normally the shelf behind me, you only see one level. And now you can see the Draymond bobblehead behind me. I don't know how well that's going to age, but it's still up for now.
I didn't put that in our outline today. It was the whole, let's just start here.
Sure.
What did you make of the whole Draymond comments from, I think it was Kerr, that said, we're giving him his space and he's giving us our space? I saw some people say, why would we want to hear about this non-update? And just the fact that Anthony Slater included it in his piece, and he has a very good pulse on that Warriors team. I was kind of like, what's going on here?
I'm not sure how much that changes about what I think of the whole situation. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what are you, like, what piqued your interest about it specifically? Like, maybe maybe indefinite suspension means like we're looking at ways to kind of like separate, or is that the...
Yeah, because we just went from our last podcast we recorded, said that he could return to the team by this past weekend. That's come and gone, and it sounds like he's not even around the team. Like, we're not talking about just playing games, but now it sounds like he's not even around the team.
Yeah, I don't know. I think from the start of it, we've definitely talked about this, how I just know I'm kind of cynical and skeptical about the reason this is an indefinite suspension, the reason everybody is saying the things that they are. How seriously really is Draymond taking it? How really this is the line that can't be crossed. Like, is it? I don't know. I just feel like the goal is going to be to, again, admitting the cynicism involved in this take, but like the goal is just kind of to keep him away for as long as is necessary for anyone that might complain about him coming back too soon to be satisfied, whether that's like the league office, whether that's Adam Silver, whether that's like broader public perception. That's just kind of how I looked at it, because it feels like that's what happened with Ja Morant both times. It just feels like what this is. Because I don't know, like, and maybe that's dead wrong. Maybe this is a situation where like he's seriously doing some introspection and there's like actual, real steps being taken to, I don't know, stop hitting Yusuf Nurkic, like whatever it is that's causing that. Like
Stop
maybe
choking Rudy Gobert.
yeah, maybe he's trying to address that. I don't know. But that didn't, like, I guess that didn't set off any alarm bells for me.
Okay.
But I could see how it would. But yeah, I just kind of think, I mean, maybe because really the more interesting question in all of this is like, I don't know, all along they've said, Steve Kerr says it every time something like this happens, well, we need him to win. That's just what it is. Like, I don't know. Is that something we should scrutinize as to whether that's really the case anymore? I don't know. Like that, the bigger picture is like, this guy's got 4 more years on his deal. Like what's that look like? I don't know.
Okay. I just saw that. I was like, oh, we went from he might be coming back tomorrow to we're giving each other space. It was just weird to me.
We had to go to LeBron's birthday party. I did see that.
Oh, okay. So he's so you weren't around and we haven't talked since, well, we've talked, but we haven't podcasted since the OG Anunoby trade. Raptors send OG Anunoby, Malachi Flynn, Precious Achiuwa to the Knicks for RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and Detroit's 2024 second round pick. I've given my thoughts basically twice over on this deal. We've seen a couple games. Well, we're in the middle. Bulls, Knicks are playing as we record this, but we've seen one full game from OG Anunoby. We've seen a couple with the new crew in Toronto. What have you just made? What did you make of that entire trade?
I mean, yeah, so just going through it almost chronologically, my very, very first thought was, oh, this feels like an underwhelming return for the Raptors, because I think I was still anchored to this idea, the 4 firsts. So the Raptors are getting offers like, tons of draft equity for Anunoby, and we played into this too, and everybody did, of like, Anunoby was the name I guarantee we mentioned most as a trade candidate who would fit in destinations XYZ, and like
him or Chris Boucher. It was close.
Everywhere, right? Yeah, and if you can't get Anunoby, it's Boucher. But it's just like, so the first thought was, oh, that's like Quickly and Barrett, basically like that. That's all, and there's a pick in there, sure. But then like the second thought was like, well, we overvalued OG, and we need to really rethink like what this player type is actually worth, because not a star, but fits everywhere, defends, makes open threes. Like we sort of like, we lionize that player type because it's so easy to say, well, he fits everywhere. And I wonder if the notion that someone as good as Anunoby is at his job is going to ever be worth the 3 firsts or whatever. Now, like, impending free agency changes a lot. Like, that's the variable that can't be ignored. But I wonder if we need to recalibrate a little bit on like what it would cost to get someone like that the next time we're in a situation that's similar to this. But then ultimately it kind of, I think it makes sense for both teams. I know that's not like an exciting take, but like Quickly really should thrive in Toronto. Like I think he's a perfect fit for Scotty Barnes. I'm sure everybody has said that, but like that's a pairing that makes all the sense in the world to me. And Anunoby is going to be, I think, exactly what the Knicks need at that position. So like, I think I like it for both teams, even though at first I will say it seemed like, oh my God, that's all it took for the Knicks to get Anunoby. But I kind of, the more I thought about it, I kind of walked a little bit back from that. But yeah, I think, I guess I'm curious too, like what the next contract looks like for him. There's all this talk of like, well, because of the CAA connection, and there's a willingness to take less. I don't know. But yeah, I guess like my only question is, and maybe you touched on this, but like, what do you think this says specifically? Not getting a package of like 1 million picks says about Toronto's kind of longer term plans. Cause like Quickly is going to be good now. Barrett is going to be what he is now and could be better. I don't know. I want to say he's good now, but like, does that mean that a Siakam trade is going to be like, we want 3 actual players for him and not like dead salary and, 3 firsts or whatever? And then just like, how good does Toronto want to be? How soon? Like that, it makes the Raptors like harder to predict, I guess,
Yep.
going forward in like a pretty interesting way to me. Because maybe they just kind of want to be like, we're not going to bottom out. We're just going to try to be at least decent with upside and see how that works for us, you know?
So you mentioned something that's interesting. You're right that maybe we romanticize the OG Anunoby archetype so long as they are making below market value. Because
Mhm.
think about the context of how we view Jeremy Grant changed as soon as he signed his next deal, or even after he signed the deal, that first deal after leaving the Nuggets. And it
Mhm.
took a while before people thought that he was either properly paid or still underpaid. We're going through it with Mikal Bridges right now.
Mhm.
What's going to happen with his next deal? Or how are we going to feel about Jalen Brunson if he signs an extension this offseason and you see that number is going to just balloon? And so we tend to romanticize players in terms of pick value, trade value, and just overall value because they're underpaid. We see it all the time with when the rookie deals become those rookie extensions. I think Tyrese Maxey's going to go through it this
Yeah.
summer, and we've seen Tyler Hero go through it. The Raptors notion is the one that I focused on, and I just can't. I've seen takes from all over that say, oh, well, now Siakam's going to stay. He'll probably sign a 4-year extension, or now this guarantees that they'll move him.
Mhm.
I don't know which side of the fence I land on. I'd probably predict, I said this the other day, that they will move him. But the fact that they did not go the pick route, and I assume that the pick route, and it might have even been available from New York, but I
Mhm.
assume the pick route in some form was available. It's the two things that I question. I think one does prove that even if they trade Siakam, they're going to be interested in competing now, because the path to like bottoming out is
Yeah.
now a lot harder if you view Quickly and Barnes as the core, because they should be solid then, or at least not solid, but the 13 and 19 team rather than like the 2 and 21 team or
Right. You
whatever.
can't get that bad with those two guys there.
And I also think, like, I honestly don't believe they were afraid of his next contract so much as he just didn't want to be on the Raptors anymore.
Interesting.
And that's why, because I don't think the Knicks give up quickly if they believe that Anunoby is going to cost $40 million a year. Like, my guess would be, if we had to say, is he going to get, it would not, I'll frame it this way. I would not be shocked if he gets less than the equivalent of the 25% max per year. So if it's
So
like 34 million instead of 35 and a half, let alone 42.6.
yeah, so what is, I'm just thinking of like recent comps, like what's Jaden McDaniels got for like 120 something or 130 something? I can't remember now.
And I think even look, you have to look at, because I've always skewed towards, I think OG Anunoby's a great fit for the Knicks and a very good basketball player. But I've said on this podcast, I think he is overrated because of the limitations that he has on the offensive end. And when you look at Devin Vassell,
Yeah.
like that number, what was that for? And what was his contract for?
I
Was
think
Devin
he was
Vassell?
in the 130s too, or something like that.
Yeah, like that player is more dynamic. 5 years, 146.
Oh,
That
wow.
player, so that's an average annual value. And granted, he's not eligible for the same max that Anunoby is, but that average annual value checked in under 30
Mhm.
for him. And he's a more dynamic player on offense. And I
Yeah.
do
Oh,
think
yeah.
that offense is more valuable than defense, as dynamic as OG Anunoby is. And I guess you can look at it and say, okay, well, Jeremy Grant got the 5 and 160. That's even fine though. Like, that's less than the, like, 5
Right.
and 160 is not even the 25% max right now. So I firmly believe he's going to come cheaper. That people are just assuming he's going to cost like $200 million or the 4-year max of 190, whatever, 192. Uh, the Raptors are the team, although I do have some thoughts on the Knicks because Woj, I don't know if you saw, we'll get to them in a second, but I don't have a feel for what the Raptors are doing now, other than I think that they're not trying to tread water so much as like retool and recalibrate and reorient on the
Yeah.
fly. And I don't know how that pans out, because I don't know, Mark Stein mentions like Memphis and Dallas might sneak into the Siakam sweepstakes. And I love Memphis for Siakam just out of the
Mhm.
curiosity of seeing him with Triple J. Their package, though, it would have to be all picks and like some of these weird salaries. So I just don't know. I think I know what the Raptors are trying to do. I don't understand how they're successfully going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, what is the team that's coming in? Is it Atlanta, another team that we're going to talk about? Like, are they going to come in with the Godfather offer of, well, we got Jalen Johnson and we got Bogdan Bogdanovic, and like, so that's where I'm at with the Raptors. I think they're trying to reorient on the fly, and I think it's going to be unsuccessful.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to me, at least for the simple reason that this is not the package that anyone really thought Anunoby was going to bring back.
Well, it does
Right.
come down to, sorry to interrupt there, but I've grappled with this and I really want to know your thoughts. Does it actually just come down to how much or how they viewed RJ Barrett and Quickly? Because everyone knows Quickly's good, but the two things are, well, he's about to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And how does he fare when he is actually a starter? And I think the latter question is not that big of a deal because we saw him close games for the Knicks, not often, but he also filled in as a starter a bunch
Mm-hmm.
last year. And so, like, this is someone who could, the playoff questions are fine, but that was also his first taste of it. So like, but like the RJ Barrett stuff is, I view him as a net negative deal at the moment. The Raptors seem to treat him in this trade. If I told you that they view RJ Barrett as a net positive or a net neutral asset, does that change how you look at their return at all?
Well, it has to. I think, yeah, we've talked about Barrett a lot. I think there are a lot of valid criticisms, just the scoring inefficiency and just, but I think too, like, it seemed pretty clear that the Knicks were just kind of the wrong team for him to be successful on for what his skill set is. And so maybe that's different in Toronto. That's like, I'm not sure there's a ton of reason to believe that's the case. Like, the hometown angle is like not, it's just like a zero factor for me. That doesn't mean anything other than like maybe that he'll be like well liked and maybe get a longer leash like
It's
from
like
the
cool
fans.
to see him talk about it, them promote. It's
Yeah,
cool, but it's not like
but it can't affect your evaluation of
right.
like what Toronto got. I think I guess it's possible, just given his youth, given the change of scenery, not just for change of scenery's sake, but like maybe things will be a little different for him in Toronto. Although like the more every time I start to talk myself into that, it's like, well, he's still a guy that just like bulls his way to the basket, and like that's when he's best. And like, I don't know, how much should he have the ball if Quickly is running the team and Scotty Barnes is kind of the guy that's doing that, the same kind of thing as you would have Barrett doing. So I'm interested in the fit. I think I guess I sort of view him as a net negative too, but I think there's a chance that could change, and then maybe this looks better for the Raptors. A lot of rides on Quickly being like basically becoming his per 36 numbers, like a lot rides on that, especially
People
with.
said he could be the best player in this deal, which is not outlandish, but
No,
to
that's
make
that's
that bet
possible.
is risky.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, like, Anunoby, I think the idea behind getting him for the Knicks is like he has a chance to be a necessary piece on a team that has to win lots of playoff rounds, because you just need that type of guy to guard Jason Tatum or whoever you end up with, that like across several rounds. Like, he's the Anunoby type is like a necessary component pretty much of a team that is trying to win a championship. That's not really true of Quickly, I don't think, or Barrett. So like, it's kind of in a weird way, it's kind of a flex by the Knicks. Like, it's easy to just go get a guy that's good and fits and, has is represented by your top executive son. Like, that's easy. But it's interesting to me that like he's kind of a put you over the top piece, but the rest of the Knicks roster is not like near enough the top for that to be
It's
his function. But maybe they're going to get there with another trade.
Well, and that's so, and I promise we'll talk about teams other than the Raptors and Knicks, which have been headliners on the past few podcasts. To wrap up my final Raptors thought, what I would do if I was Toronto, and they might still do this, I would try to find a trade for Jakob Poeltl, and I
Sure.
would keep Pascal Siakam. If this is what you're actually trying to redo, and then you can figure out maybe it's more Siakam at the 5, or we're putting a different type of center around him. I think that is actually the best route for them. I just don't know if that's what they're thinking type deal, because they really, the Barnes Siakam pairing is weird, and you throw RJ Barrett and Quickly into there in the equation. But Siakam was great in that first game they all played together. But then there were moments in crunch time where like he's not touching the ball, so that gets
Right.
awkward. If I were running the team though, that's what I would look to do. Your
Yeah.
quick thoughts on that?
No, I think I agree. I just like, you have to give stuff up to get off Pirtle now. Like, are you gonna like what are you getting back? You can't just dump 4 years and 78 or 80 million or whatever it is, for like a non-stretch, non-switch center. Like, who's clamoring for that? Maybe there's some teams, but like, I just wonder if like Siakam you'll get stuff for. I worry that Pirtle is going to cost you stuff that you don't really have to spare.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, like maybe, I don't know. And he hasn't even been a good enough rim protector this year to say, like, would New Orleans be okay with him as sort of, we're going to play a lot of Nance or maybe Zion at the 5, but you
Yeah.
have Jonas already. So that is a good point. I don't know what the Jakob Poeltl market. I don't think you'd have to give up stuff to get off him, but it is kind of like, well, where is he going?
Yeah, where's the landing spot that wants to pay him that? I mean, it's not like a crazy salary, but it's like it's a decent chunk, even with the cap going up.
Did you see on to the New York Knicks again? And it's not. This isn't going to really be OG Anunoby related. Did you see the Woj bit from NBA Today? He's only apparently been posting on Threads, which I might be a bad arbinger for Twitter users. Which, man, it does suck. Just as an aside, just to have built that following. Like we have 5,000 followers on our Hardwood Knocks, and I don't even know what I have on my own personal account. It's more than that. I think it's double. But like they don't grow anymore. Like our tweets are just I'm promoting on Twitter and I'm just like, why? Like, I mean, it would maybe if like we could get people to just bump our own, but I don't know how many people are still going to see it. So it's just sad to see the death of what was just like, look, it was a driving force for like both our careers, even if you weren't using it as much. Like it was this source of information, instant reactions.
Yeah,
And just
it's the utility of it is like so diminished now. Just looking for like even like I don't know what I was working on today, trying to find a highlight clip of somebody doing something to like embed in an article, and it's like, how is it so hard to find like Tyrese Halliburton jump pass? Like it used to be, you get a million of them with perfectly edited video clips right away, and now it's
like right wing prop. You search Tyrese Halliburton jump pass and right wing propaganda. It's on the screen.
Right. No, but the Woj thing you were saying.
Did you see it?
You referred to it. No, I don't think so. The Murray stuff, basically, right?
It was longer, and he didn't mention Murray specifically in the clip that I saw, but I'll lay it out this for anyone who didn't see it, and you can go check it out. I'm sure it's floating around right-wing Twitter somewhere. Just search Donald Trump and maybe the
Parlor.
Woj.
Yeah, Parlor account for it.
But he basically said the Knicks' plan is to acquire another shot creator this season, and then they're going to go through the playoffs and wait for someone to be discontent with the way the playoffs end and then ask for out. And then they will go after that player who they will still have the picks to get and might use said shot creator that they just acquired to land that said star who asked for out. And so I'm listening to this. I might have butchered the point. I underscored the main point. So I might have butchered the actual phrasing. The whole thing just screamed, well, they're going to trade for DeJounte Murray and they're prepared to move him again over the summer.
So that's the weirdest thing in like, so now it's like it's like Minority Report where Woj is like the precog that is like they're going to get him, but then also they're going to flip him because he's going to be upset. Like what kind of reporting is this? I don't understand how you're
well, because I'm like, what is the other, unless he's like kind of referring to Bojan Bogdanovic, which maybe they're just both involved in the trade. Or is he referring to Bojan Bogdanovic, where it's like to get a stopgap type thing? But when he said shot creator, I immediately went, all right, so it's not going to be a big or someone who might infringe upon, like Bojan Bogdanovic should really play the 4. I don't want to see him playing next to Julius Randle and then, Isaiah Hartenstein. And so I was just like, well, it's Murray. Mitchell's not on the trade market. I still don't love the fit with Brunson anyway. And so I want your thoughts on this. Well, 2 things. 1, what do you think of like that overall plan? And 2, how do you feel about the Murray Brunson fit now that IQ and Barrett are out of the equation? And then also 3, to circle back to 1, am I wrong in thinking that this is kind of an ingenious plan? No, I'm not saying Murray's the guy, but if you're viewing it as like, there's a chance because Murray's extension kicks in next season at $24.8 million.
Yep.
If I had to ask you right now whether Emmanuel Quickly is making more or less than that, it's already less than RJ Barrett. But do you think IQ will be making more than 25 million over or under?
I'm going to evade that. I think he'll be making, I mean, right there. So I'll just say more just because it might be, but it's going to be right in the neighborhood. But so you're asking, is it an ingenious plan to acquire a player, assume they will be discontented because you've lost in the playoffs and want to leave, and then trade this discontented person who you are banking on wanting out like that?
No. So I'm sorry if I explained it wrong. They want to acquire a shot creator.
Yes.
Bring him on the roster for this season. And they will, if they have to, use him to then acquire someone else who's unhappy
I see.
about the way the playoffs ended. And that kind of screamed like, so we're just talking about you're trying to send DeJounte Murray out for Joel Embiid. It's just kind of how I read the entire situation.
Okay. So it's not, that makes that's a little closer to ingenious than what I thought you were saying of like, let's get this guy. He'll get pissed off for sure. And then we'll trade him. Like, that's not a good plan. No, that's interesting. So the Murray thing, just looking, so you laid out the number. Murray's going to make about 25 next year, 27, 29, $31 million player option, the fourth year of this new deal, which to me, like, that really feels about like what Quickly is going to get. Like if his numbers go like 25, 27, 29, 31 million, like that's not going to shock. I think that's close to what it's going to probably take. I guess maybe a little less. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think people forget restricted free agency is so prohibitive now for other teams to where it's like, I will probably I lampoon teams that didn't go after Austin Reeves and poison pill him this summer. I'm going to do the same thing, sans any poison pill with Quickly, where it's like, well, if the Magic have cap space or like, just go throw it at Quickly. And if they match, fine. You burnt your cap space for a few hours. You're okay.
So just with specifically focusing on Murray as the guy you put next to Brunson, I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that he's all that different from Quickly in terms of like value and even really like player type. Because if you just like Quickly doesn't play as much, but if you go sort them both for per 36, like Murray and Quickly are like shockingly close with key, like, 21, 22 points per 36, like 4 or 5 assists and rebounds each per 36. But Quickly's the better shooter. He gets up more threes. He gets to the line more often. Murray has a big edge in steals, I guess, if you care about that. But I think Quickly has demonstrated he's a very good, defender against, unless you get too much size against him, which Murray doesn't really guard up that much. So, like, if you didn't like the idea of paying Quickly to be next to Brunson and thought, the mix just isn't quite right, like, unless you get Murray from like last year in San Antonio when he was really viewed as more of a defensive guard than an offensive guard, which has flipped in Atlanta. Then I don't understand the logic of Quickly out, Murray in. Like, obviously, like you do Quickly out because you're getting Anunoby, but just those two are not different enough to me to justify the Knicks thinking Murray is someone that like really adds a ton. I get like Quickly's gone, so yeah, Murray would replace Quickly, but it's not like it doesn't make sense to me why one would be so preferable over the other. If moving Quickly was also about like, we don't want to pay him what it's going to cost, then bringing in someone who is going to make similar money and does similar stuff is weird to me.
I agree to an extent, but there are a few things where I'm differing. And I think you can look at it in some of, would you rather have Jalen Brunson, Emmanuel Quickly, and RJ Barrett, or Jalen Brunson, DeJounte Murray, and OG Anunoby?
Obviously the latter, right? Like that's the way to look at it.
You're looking at it that way. And then the differentiation, I do think Emmanuel Quickly should end up being the more valuable offensive player, as good as DeJounte Murray has been this year. He's the better. DeJounte Murray's shooting like 40% on off the dribble threes, 37% on catch and shoot threes. Emmanuel Quickly's been better historically as a catch and shoot guy. They both like to get to the in-between, but Quickly is more of kind of that like sudden floater, whereas like Murray wants to kind of pull up and go through the motions. Murray's a much better passer, I would say, than Quickly at this stage. And I know you said he doesn't defend up, but he does defend stars. And like Emmanuel Quickly has defended stars. And part of the reason he's not defending stars is he's not starting. But like Murray's 6'5" and pretty long. So he can guard up. And it's also his defensive role in Atlanta is so much different from if he's in New York with OG Anunoby on the roster. And then also even Hartenstein, like, here's a serious question. Are Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson both better defensively than Clint Capella at this point?
He might be now. Yeah. I mean, it's a conversation at least.
So I think I understand the logic now, where it's like, well, if Quickly was it took Quickly, like we needed to give up Quickly to get OG. Now this is the path we're going to follow. I'm now more intrigued by the Murray fit than I was when we had the initial report before the OG Anunoby trade that prominent members of the Knicks organization view him as the ideal trade target. Now, the idealism here, that's still doing a lot of work. But I think that the contract structure, if he's making a little bit more than Quickly, that I think we know what his deal is, I guess is what I'm saying. And like Quickly, there would have been a trade restriction on him this summer, unless you brokered a sign and trade. And then also just like the mystery of not knowing the number there. You know what the number is for Murray. And I think it's a contract that, unless you're trying to suck, what team wouldn't want the Murray? Like, that's just not. I know his value is kind of divisive at this
Mhm.
point, but I think that that's a good contract, and so you can fold it in to the next deal.
Yeah.
So it's almost like to me, it's almost like a twisted, warped Sam Presti way of thinking, where I'm thinking they're looking at Fournier right now, and they're like, well, we're trying to figure out a way to keep this expiring salary, like to roll it over into a trade asset, but maybe also from someone who could play for us right now, because
Yeah.
Fournier is not really going to. I don't know if it works out for them. I think what makes me more uncomfortable would be two things. What is the cost of getting Murray? I honestly, I don't know. Like, is it like you're probably going to have to give up some picks or pick in that? But if you're keeping all your own picks and all your own distant picks, then yes, your star powder is still dry. You are now running thin on, and they were running thin to begin with because Quickly was about to get paid. RJ Barrett already got paid, wasn't playing well. You don't have any like tangible blue chippers. There's
Mhm.
Quentin Grimes, and that's like it.
Yeah. No, I think if you're Atlanta, if you're willing to take back a package that's mostly like Fournier as the main salary and then picks, like that would be, and maybe this is what Atlanta should do. Like that would be a move you make in anticipation of like, we're really going to strip this thing down,
Mm-hmm.
because the idea was that Murray was kind of just, oh, this is the piece we need to really get, to minimize Trae Young's weaknesses, and we're going to take a step forward. And like, that's just not where the Hawks are now. So maybe that would make sense in that context. Like, we're either not saying they're going to trade Trae if they trade Murray, like probably they just, rebuild the entire core around Trae, I guess. But like, I think you probably need a player back, in most realistic constructions of this, because it doesn't seem likely that Atlanta, even if it should, is going to go beyond like Murray as the first in a series of moves that were, kind of really going to change the face of this roster. That just feels like a very non-Atlanta thing to do. So,
If it
but then
saves
like,
the money, it might be a very Atlanta thing to
well,
do.
yeah, the money side, sure. But if it's not Fournier and picks, like what even else is there? Like, how do you
Well,
even,
you're mentioning a player. It would have to be Grimes at that point, and that
yeah.
would make some sense because if Murray's coming in, you have DiVincenzo, you have Josh Hart still. His playing time could be repressed in that
Mhm.
regard. And the Knicks they did extend Deuce McBride, so they might view it as like, we're going to go forward with this. But then Atlanta also has to consider, well, we have to pay Jalen Johnson, and we're going to have to pay Quentin Grimes as well. It feels very makeshift. And maybe I want to wrap up on the Knicks very quickly. The part of this plan that makes me uneasy, what is this star that you're waiting on to ask out? Because I really don't think it's going to be Joel Embiid in Philly.
No.
And so it's like, I don't want to see them acquire DeJounte Murray just to try and fold it over into Donovan Mitchell. That doesn't do anything. I like the Murray fit with Brunson probably better than the Mitchell fit with Brunson, because that is not as eminently attackable on defense.
Yeah, certainly for the price too, right? Because the Murray
Yeah, that
is like meaningfully less than Mitchell's making, and what Mitchell is making and will make, like on his next one. So
so
yeah,
it's like
that's
if they're thinking it's Mikal Bridges, that's like fine. Does he fit the bill of I mean, if you had OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges on the same team,
that's pretty exciting. The last thing, I know we keep trying to move off the Knicks, but like, so Julius Randle has been good. Like, I still get the feeling of like, I just don't feel comfortable with needing him to make tough 2-point jumpers off the dribble sometimes to bail the offense out. Like, this is like a 4-year-old take, but every Knicks game I watch, that's still a thing that kind of feels necessary. Is the Anunoby acquisition and all this other talk, is there any, where do you put the likelihood of a Randall move at some point, like relative to what's happened lately? Is it higher? Is it lower? Is Randall just like a fixture forever? Like, where is
my
he in the organization now?
one. I know you say your take is a 4-year-old take, but even as he's contending for a third All NBA spot, and again, I wouldn't predict he'd get it, but the minimum games played, that's going to do
It could
wonders for
totally
him.
happen. He could be a
Yeah,
3-time All NBA
he's
player.
going to be such a fascinating player to look back on in a few years.
Oh, I don't know what to
But
do with him.
but your take isn't old. It's on point, because even when he's good, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's with him, it's mountaintops and gullies.
Yeah,
There's never like an in between. And here's where I would land. If the fact that they have OG Anunoby now, who can very easily just be your 4,
sure. Maybe
if they
should
go
be
out and
something.
trade DeJounte Murray, my guess is that they're then going to use Julius Randle as sort of this hybrid. Well, look at this expiring salary matcher / really good player who has maybe 3 All-NBA selections over the past half decade. And that's who they're going to use to try and get that next player, because they have another creator in Murray, another guy who can take up Randall's minutes, and then maybe they'll be targeting either a different type of big or more likely just another type of wing to pair with OG Anunoby. That is where I would land on it. I also recognize that Randall's actually been really good. And so if other teams are only going to view him as a salary matching tool, like, you're working from a deficit if you're the Knicks at this point, because this dude is really, whether you like it or not, or comfortable with it or not, he's incredibly pivotal to what they're doing.
He is, and he's not a universal fit. So it's like, I said, like, who's the team clamoring for Pirtle? Like, who's out there saying we need Randall is the guy we need? We need a ball dominant 4. Like, I don't understand who's saying that.
Would you hate him? I mentioned this as a joke to the uncontested fellas, but they said it was or at least Jacob Niffen said it was interesting that Julius Randle on OKC wouldn't be like, he's so ball dominant, but if you're replacing some of the Giddey minutes and Giddey's been good, you'd have to put him in a smaller role. I don't think it's like a good long-term fit, so I don't like it.
I can't wrap my head around that one.
I hope I'm not. I keep calling him an expiring contract after this year, but I might. Let's see if I'm even right there. I think there might be an appeal where, like, let's look at a Raptors type situation. Yeah, because he has that player option for 2025, which I expect him to decline. So, like, if you're like a team that's kind of in transition, you're not looking to suck, and you need someone that's going to eat innings and also be like serviceable and good for a year, maybe 2. Like, there are worse things to do than have Julius Randle there. So that's just my gut. I don't, without knowing. At this point, though, I fully expect them to just acquire DeJounte Murray. That's officially where I'm at.
I feel like we've talked about it enough to where it's just it's bound to happen now.
But we've talked about the Hawks a little bit, and I want to talk about them a little bit more because they're sort of like Raptors South at this point. I don't know what they're doing or even necessarily what they should do, and they're probably behind the 8 ball compared to the Raptors, just because at least Scotty Barnes gives you access to all these different timelines. I'm not sure that Trae Young does the same thing. And I think you need to build out your roster with more rigid specifications if he is your tentpole star than if Scotty Barnes is your central building block right now. I look at this team. They are terrible on defense. They don't seem to have any interest after they miss a shot in getting back in transition. There's possessions of beauty, and most of them involve Jalen Johnson. And then there's just possessions where the ball doesn't really move even close to the free throw line, and Trae Young is chucking up this big or this ultra long 3-pointer. And, there are nights where the offense is super efficient, but then there are nights where it's just also super maddening.
Yeah.
And there's no flow. It feels your turn, my tourney, or something less than that. They have good players on this team. But I'm also just like, well, shouldn't you be trying to capitalize on the value of these players? And they're worried about paying people. And they've already paid Bogdan Bogdanović. He's not making too much, but you've paid Trae, you've paid Murray, you've paid Hunter. Now you got to pay Jalen Johnson. You got to pay Sadiq Bey. Clint Capella's under contract for a little bit. You have Onyeka Okongwu, who is on a reasonable deal. I just don't know what they're doing or what their end game is. And it seems like everyone other than Trae Young is available. So what is the pivot for this team? And I know some people will be annoyed that we're focusing transactionally on them, but everything feels so transactionally driven by them, even down to the roster that's in place right now because of how they handled the John Collins stuff. What is this team doing?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, maybe we should do an episode on this at some point, but the Hawks are way up there in the whole is less than the sum of the parts thing, because you listed off, I don't know, 7 or 8 guys that you just objectively you would say, well, that guy helps the team. That guy helps the team. Bogdanović is just maybe the best, maybe should be 6th man of the year if you had the vote right now, and is would start for lots and lots of teams. And, Jalen Johnson's really exciting. DeAndre Hunter, I think, is mostly been a disappointment, but that's another salary thing. He got his, post rookie deal, and now it's oh, it's not good enough anymore. Okongwu has got his deal, but Capella is just still there. That was supposed to be a torch passing thing. You're going to trade Capella. They got all these guys. I think is it wrong to just say that because Trae Young is the type of player he is, which is just a phenomenal, like he alone means your offense can be very good.
Mm-hmm.
He alone also means you're going to spend every game hiding him defensively, trying to get everybody else that plays with him to give an effort defensively because he doesn't, and he's your best player and highest paid player. So the tone setting element is tricky. Is it the case now that you just, if you're gonna have Trae Young on the team, you have to sort of treat it like the Mavs have tried a couple times with Luka Doncic, and it's just like everyone around him has to be a good defender that can make open threes, and we're just gonna play that way. Like that's just what the roster construction has to be. And so in that situation, like DeJounte Murray doesn't really have a place because he hasn't been that good of a defender, and he's not a huge volume 3-point shooter. Ditto for, even Hunter, ditto for like Bogdanovic. He's duplicative. We need to use that salary slot and value of him to turn him into like 2021 Dorian Finney-Smith and like, things like that. We just need a bunch of those guys around Trae Young, or this can't work. Like maybe that's where we are now. Cause you see, it's a unique player type, and it's different than Luka in Dallas because Young is small, and it's just harder, I think, sometimes to work around that with him being at the point of attack all the time. Although you could argue that because Luka has to guard 3s and 4s, like that's a worse spot to be deficient in defensively.
Mm-hmm.
But Luka's a better defender than Trae Young just because of his size. I don't know. It does raise a bunch of questions about like what should the team around Trae look like, and then subsequently like, is he a good enough player for us to be building a specific type of team around? Like that's really the galaxy brain question, is like, we're talking about all these other players. Is the issue just like maybe it's really hard or impossible to build a consistent big time winner around Trae Young because of how he plays? Like, I don't know. I think that's what makes the Hawks so fascinating, is because like you could try to solve the problem really drastically, or you could like tinker a little bit and see, what kind of player mix changes things.
And you've outlaid the problem really well, but I then also wonder, okay, there is this rigidity to how you have to build your roster around him. Have they ever come close to effectively doing that?
Well, so as I was saying that, I was trying to think back on who was on the team that made the East Finals with him, and it's like mostly these guys. So I don't know what to do with that.
And even what makes it even more confusing is the names that they have actually been linked to, because they're at the stage where it feels like other teams are linked to their players, where it's, Team X will be interested in Bogdanovic. And I feel like 29 teams should probably be interested in him if he's available. There's been rumors about, which team would be willing to take on Clint Capella. And that list is definitely dwindling. And it's, DeJounte Murray and the Knicks, or DeJounte Murray. And actually have we heard of DeJounte Murray linked to any other team than
Lakers,
the Knicks?
I think maybe
another one. Was that me though? Who mentioned that the Lakers?
I don't know. Could have been some idiot online. Probably could have been you.
Yeah, so me. But like the only players we really heard about them targeting is Pascal Siakam, which doesn't do anything to clarify the direction of this team, because I don't love his fit with Trae Young. I think you're looking to kind of dilute the ball dominance. You don't do that, and you're getting a worse shooter if you're going from Murray to Siakam, assuming Murray is moving out in another deal, or at least headed to another team. And then you have to pay Siakam. So what do you do? And he's going to probably get more than Murray did. I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Oh, more than Murray for sure.
Think. So I'm just like, I don't understand. I wouldn't mind seeing Siakam and Trae, but like, what is the bigger, the larger plan here? And I can only come to the conclusion that the front office doesn't have one.
Well, I mean, I can sympathize a little bit, because I imagine they were caught off guard by this team not improving significantly this season, right? Because like that, it seemed like their over under was an easy over for a lot of people. I thought that the Hawks were going to be, high 40s probably, if not better than that in terms of win total. And like, they just haven't been. So I think like, I understand why the front office could kind of be looking at each other thinking like, well, shit, like what now? Right. Because like everything pointed towards just a better season, and it hasn't just been stagnant, it's been worse. I mean, their record, they're on pace to lose more games than last year. So like, I don't know. I wonder if like in a situation like this where it seems like so intractable, like have you seen anything from the Hawks? This is like a rhetorical question, because I haven't, that suggests like maybe we just give it this year and wait it out. Like maybe we just see like if is there a surge in the second half or something, because it's like The alternative is we've just laid out how tricky it all is. Like I don't know what the fix is. So maybe it's just like, I don't know, do nothing and address it in June or July or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Johnson had a behind the back dunk against the Thunder tonight as we record this. So maybe is that the flashpoint. And I think they were, when I turned it off to come podcast with you, they were thumping the Thunder, and let's see if they finished the job. They did. Well, they didn't thump them, but they won 141 to 138 because it's the Hawks defense.
Second night of a back-to-back for the Thunder, though.
Coming off a game against Boston, then went down the road. I'm just saying, though, they were killing them at one point. So, no, I haven't seen anything from them that would make me say, let's give it the season. You know what I have seen that would make me say this? Literally all the alternatives on the trade market, to where it's, no, we're not stripping it down. We're just folding this into another weird iteration, experiment version of, let's see if we can be aggressively mediocre.
Right. Yeah, they're I don't know, that I'm not enthused, I would say, about like what the prospects are for this team. But like, again, you can definitely trade Bogdanovich for positive value. You can definitely trade Murray for positive value. I think Jalen Johnson, I want to hold on to him if I'm Atlanta, but like, as throwing him in with bigger salaries could really get you something potentially, but I don't want to do that.
Siakam without giving up Jalen Johnson.
If I'm Toronto, I'm like, I have to have Jalen Johnson, or that's it. Probably. But you never know what the offers are going to be.
They got rid of Achua, and if you're going to get rid of Siakam and you got rid of Anunoby, like you have Scotty Barnes, like who's this bigger forward on your team now?
Just Otto Porter Jr., just ready to just get him out there.
Which team do you want to head to next?
I want to talk Grizzlies a little bit. Just because this is the rare case where there's a before and after for this team. And the before, obviously the before is when Ja Morant was suspended and the Grizzlies were, snake bit by injuries and just like full stop, one of the most disappointing teams in the league. And so I wanted to look at, just mostly out of curiosity, like, because basically if you did the numbers, they got to win at close to a 50 win pace. I know that they just lost as we're recording this. So this will change slightly, but they needed a 50 win pace to get to 500, which, is to go 41-41, which is, as you look at it right now, like that might do it for like a 9th or 10th spot in the West and get into the play-in, which would be a pretty like significant accomplishment given how bleak things have been so far. Modest as it is to say a team that's won 50 plus 2 years in a row could really scramble and make the last 2 play-in spots, maybe. It's like the type of thing where if they lose 4 of 5 or even like 3 of 4, like at any point, that just like over. I'm no longer paying attention to them probably. But so with Ja's first game was December 19th. Since then, Memphis, I had them at 5-3. They're 5-4 now, 5-3 in the games he's played. Their best win was probably that one over New Orleans the day after Christmas. They've had some pushovers. So like even the solid record since Ja's return is a little iffy. The 28th in offense, 9th in defense since Morant came back, which is a little like, I don't know. I buy the defense being 9th or better with their personnel. 28th on offense is just like shooting variance and small samples. So like,
like Morant's not hitting his threes. Marcus Smart still isn't hitting his threes. Luke Kennard came back and was hitting his threes. Well,
if he plays, he does. But so to that point, the lineups coming into this recently lost game, I believe, to Toronto on the 3rd. Lineups with Ja, Bane, Smart, and Jaren Jackson Jr. were minus 8.1 net rating. Small samples, obviously. But the only reason for that is the offense has just been horrible. It's like 94 points per 100, which is, in the modern era is like unfathomably, you almost can't play that poorly on offense with 5 NBA players on the floor. So like, and the defense is 102.5, which again, the small sample caveats should apply to both ends, but it's just like, I think that might be about right. Like that group could defend that way. Or at least that's closer to real. So like, I'm still sort of optimistic. And again, optimistic being you can play at a 50 win pace for the next 3 months or whatever. And, like, because you've done that with roughly this team. And if Marcus Smart is anything other than terrible and can be healthy, then I don't know. Like, I just think the offense needs to be a priority in any move they make. And I wonder, trying to like sort of wave to this, like so what? Like they're better with Ja. They need to be really good to have a postseason of any kind. Like, what do you do? Can you flip Smart? And can you package him with like Aldama or Zaire Williams? Is anybody interested in that? And you can get like a two-way wing or like a big that would make more sense next to Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, it's like Wendell Carter. Is that guy? Like, do you go stopgap with like Nick Vucevic? Do you go stopgap with Valanciunas? Like
Siakam?
Siakam? Do you? How are you getting Siakam if you're the Grizzlies?
I think you outlined it. Is that I do believe he doesn't fit the archetype of the bigger forward, but because of what Toronto will have been sending out, it's can you get one of sort of those forwards, those younger forwards, not Zaire Williams, but let's say Santi Aldama, Smart, and then the rest of the salary will make it work. I'm sure Toronto would insist on Luke Kennard, but they're probably going to be more apt to be, like, we'll give you Brandon Clark and Marcus Smart and Santi Aldama. And I think that number gets you to that. I don't think that's enough.
You got to have
I probably need picks, but
I don't hate Siakam there because if you have Jackson spacing the floor, that you can get away.
I do wonder if he would become disgruntled with like, all right, well, my offensive role is just buried. We got Bane, Siakam, and Ja Morant. Where's that headed?
Yeah,
for you. I don't know if I like the end result, but I like it enough to where I would really want to see it.
Right.
With those four.
And I think you do have to just skew offense if you're going to improve this roster, which is like weird because the big offseason move was getting Marcus Smart in there to replace Dylan Brooks because you're trying to preserve the defense. I think if you have Jaren Jackson and, Ja's not great, but you have enough around him, your defense is going to be fine. So it's just like, how can you, because I guess if you got to play at a 50-win pace, you need to have a net rating that's, +3, +4 probably. So it's like, it's all got to come on offense. The defense will be there. You just have to be above water offensively, and they just haven't been yet. So yeah, they're an interesting team to think of as like a trade candidate because you might.
Would you, if you're them? I understand that Ja's good. You've paid. I mean, Bane, the extension hasn't kicked in, but like you've paid him. You've paid Jaren Jackson Jr. Is this the season to? We've talked about how they waited too long to make the consolidation trade or trades, and then when they finally did, they were the wrong ones, basically. Mm-hmm. Do you make a move like that this season when it feels so like just the path you're going to have to travel to get even just into the playoffs?
Right.
There's the argument of, well, yeah, then go and get guy X so that you can actually get into the play-in and into the playoffs. But then it's, well, you give up this many assets for a season that's just going to end in, losing in the first round or something. And then you could argue, well, if that player's under contract, you're going to keep them. You should always just go get them because you're not just going to tank this season anyway. And so I probably land on if it's out there, if you can try Siakam, or I even thought about Larry Markkinen for this team. I don't know if you like the Triple J Markkinen pairing. That would be something to think about.
I very much do. I think Markkinen. I just don't. I don't know. Did the Grizzlies have 5 first-round picks to appease Danny Ainge for Markkinen?
They have all their own, so they could get. I think they could trade 4.
I mean, that's a way better fit than Siakam, right? Just because Markkinen has so much value as just a shooter that he could, I'm not worried about him monopolizing touches or being upset that he's not getting enough on ball stuff. Maybe it's a bigger question. Like, so let's say the Grizzlies lose 6 in a row, right? And so now it's just like, we cannot make the play-in. We just don't have it. Should that change like their approach to going and getting the type of player we're talking about? Like just in like a theoretical sense, like, or should you just go get that guy and be like, well, okay, now we're going to see what we got this year. We'll probably rest a bunch of guys and then we come back next year with the team we want. Like, I think maybe they should operate almost the same way, whether they're sort of unofficially eliminated or not from the playoffs. Just because, most of this roster, the guys that really matter are young. So you can still think like, well, we're just trying to be good in 24, 25 and beyond. So we'll go get Markkinen or we'll go get Sia or, whatever. I don't think it should change.
Yeah, that's a good call. Could they be? Yeah, I'm curious as to, I think they have the assets to get Siakam if it comes down to it. That's assuming if the Raptors actually want picks for Pascal.
Right, we don't know.
I mean, I guess if you're getting Smart as part of that deal, it's kind of like, best of both worlds, Smart and picks and maybe Aldama. There's a nice little balance there. But I mean, Siakam's headed to free agency himself. We just saw OG go for less than we thought. I'm sure, IQ, like just the upcoming free agency had to play into that, or maybe OG really wanted out. And we know Siakam was at least wanted to stay in Toronto as entering this season. But do they even have the assets to these other guys that we're going to talk about or not, or that we could talk about marketing? I don't know that they would have the best offer. Like if we're talking, they go all out for marketing. Do they have the, maybe, do they have the, and like, that's a weird thing to say about someone who's maybe a top 35 player in the, like, do we have enough to get him? They probably, my guess would be they wouldn't have the best offer for Mikal Bridges.
No, because you go down the list and you think like, because it has to be pretty pick heavy. Because who's the young guy on Memphis that a team is thinking like, there's not like a Quickly.
Probably Vince Williams, who's on a two-way, and it's just
yeah, but
like,
there's not Quickly is like, we'll just use him because he's a good example of like, this guy hasn't, performed like a star yet, but we sort of like, there's a lot of reason to believe he can come pretty close to that, and he's young enough, and he'll be like, they don't have that guy, which I think needs to be a headliner. Even if you're talking about a bunch of picks, like you need, if you're going for someone like Markkanen, Anunoby's different because of the expiring stuff, but like, or the player option, I guess, if you want to be specific about it. But it's just, you need, Memphis is going to have a hard time having the best offer for like anyone of like real consequence, I think, which didn't used to be the case. Did not used to be the case, but it is now.
I think that's what it comes down to for me. Is I actually agree with the way you frame it. You should probably operate the same way. But if it's a move where if it's Siakam, I'd probably just do it to see if it works. If it's marketing, sure. But if it's like, if the best move you can make is, let's say it's a Kuzma or Jeremy Grant, guys who are under contract, but they're still going to cost you a pick or two plus the salaries to go out. Are you making that move this season where it's I would say noticeably a cut below fringe star level?
Or like Bojan Bogdanovic would be another one that would make a decent amount of sense there.
That's like, do you even have to give up a first round pick at that point for that one though?
So. I don't know what anything is worth anymore. Like
the OG Anunoby trade really fucked with your head.
It really did. I don't know what value is. That's probably enough on the Grizzlies. Do you want to do another team?
Yeah, let's talk about, since I don't know how much longer we're gonna go, let's talk about the Thunder since they're trending. They did just lose to Atlanta as we're recording this, and we've probably asked this question before, but I'm gonna ask it again and then give my own answer to it. Do the Thunder actually need to do anything to be one of the 5 to 6 teams most likely to win the title this season? And I'll preface it before you answer with the vitals. They are top 5 in offense and defense, including in the half court, where they have the best half court offense. And that's been, they're the best 3-point shooting team in the league. They are below average when it comes to volume, but I've kind of focused on, I really think that they're not a good rebounding team. We know this, but they've now beaten, the Timberwolves, the Celtics. We saw them they've been beating. We talked about how they could use some wins against good teams. And then they just they rip-rolled the Lakers.
Yep.
I'm not saying the Lakers are a good team, but ever since I think it was that Lakers game was sort of the turning point for them, that was on November 26th. They've just been rattling off victories against teams that they're 12-4 during that stretch, plus 9.6 rating. Some of the things we have focused on, or at least I have harped on, I won't say they're starting to normalize, but they've improved to where there was this squishiness with the starting 5 offensively. That seems to be coming around a little bit. Josh Giddey has been better. I would say much better as of late because he was working from such a nadir. That starting unit during this stretch in the 13 games they've played together, they're shooting 45% from 3. They've outscored opponents by 31 points in their 158 minutes. That's not including the Atlanta game on Wednesday night. So I want to say, I think that the people who believe they need to trade for a star are mistaken, because right now that works within their salary structure, but long-term with Jalen Williams eventually getting a new deal, Chet Holmgren, Josh Giddey himself, you're very much viewing that as, well, we're making this move because our title window is now. We know title windows are fickle and are short. And so we want to maximize the next 2 to 3 years rather than prioritizing the next 6 to 8. I don't think that's a flawed way of thinking, by the way. I think anyone who's just criticizing, well, a star doesn't fit into their salary structure, why would they go after Larry Markkanen? It's because you don't know what could happen next year, the year after that. So there is the element of the now, but if you're already good enough to win the title, you don't need to worry about that. And so I'm curious to where you land on this team going into the playoffs, winning, I'm going to say 3 playoff series to come out of the West. I'm not even saying they need to win a title, but are they good enough to do that left alone?
So I think the thing that should push them towards going and getting a big name is kind of the same reason like I don't want them to, which is that like because the reason you do it is like, oh shit, like we are maybe the best team in the West. Like there's really one or two other teams. Certainly, like Denver is Denver, but like you could make the case that I mean, I think net rating says it that the Thunder have been better than the Wolves. Like there's at least
Their
a
offense is, I would say, more trustworthy than Minnesota's
yes,
for sure.
there's a discussion to be had there for sure. So, but it's like, well, if they're already this good, like, why don't we just let this group grow together, keep the powder dry, and like, I don't know, maybe somebody better than Markkanen becomes available, and we'll definitely have the ability to make the best offer for that guy. Like, but at the same time, you're right here. You might be one guy away. I'm always more conservative about stuff like this, where it's like, I kind of don't want to touch this team. If like,
Yeah.
I want Holmgren and Williams and SGA to just be there as the top three guys for, you talk about a 6 to 8 year window. Like there's no such thing. Like I think every smart franchise goes in like 2 to 3 year windows, and then they just reassess after
That
2
is
to
the
3 years.
argument for them going to make the trade, though, is
Right.
that you have these three now,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can fit it into your salary structure for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Let's maximize that.
I just like if it were someone, because who's the guy? Because if it's Markkanen, like look, we love Markkanen, but maybe there's something better. Like why not aim even higher if it means waiting a year or I don't know. I watched that entire game last night. I'm so in. I'm so in on the Thunder. They're so good. Like they just.
So here's where I land. I probably wouldn't. I'm not going to say that. I mean, because I love so many of watching the players on, and I'm not even talking about the top end talent. I know some people have tried to frame it as like Lou Dort being expendable, and it's like, I know he's erratic on the offensive end at times, but he still has volume on the offensive end, which is more than you could say for some players. And his defensive workload, it allows you to insulate so many other people, including, why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in part is so good defensively? Because he gets to play with J-Dub and Lou Dort.
Yep.
You know why J-Dub is so good defensensively? Because he gets to play with Lou Dort and general.
And Chet's a great defensive player right now today as a rookie. Like that.
So but like Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams, I don't want to see those guys get traded. I don't want to see their minutes get cut. Poku's not even playing. Ousmane Dieng's not playing. My heart breaks for both those guys. At the same time, there are different levels to it. I wouldn't make, and I would be reticent to do this basically no matter which team I am. I don't want to make the star trade mid-season because it just feels like much harder to integrate someone who's completely foreign to your system and your principles and your ideologies. Mark Daigneault could probably do it because he does look. I don't know if you saw that I tweeted. You probably didn't. I said Mark Daigneault looks like John Stockton discovered science. Like that's just what he reminds me of when I see him. But I think if you are a contender, you should treat yourself like a contender, and you could stand to beef up maybe the 6th, the 7th, the 8th spot in your rotation. Look, there's a very clear need up front when you look at rebounding, maybe just some heft bounce there. But I also think you could make the argument. I know he's been better lately. I'm not trying to be spicy with this. Josh Giddey is not a good fit for this team long term.
Oh, he's the guy you move 100%. Of the young core, that's the guy.
It's not about we need to trade one of these guys before they get paid and turn them into another star. It's no, we should trade him before we have to pay him when his value is high enough. If they want to roll him and do the Sam Presti special into more picks, fine, do that. Now might be the time to do it if he continues to play well. Defenses, and Boston dared him to shoot. They had bigs on him for a good portion of the game. That is going to happen in the playoffs, and I have very little confidence that Josh Giddey is going to deliver for you offensively in the playoffs. And so that, though, is thinking like, well, if we're just going to move him for picks, why not wait until the summer or something? Because he is technically helping our team now. He is important now. But that sort of brings me back to, is there something where you can even make, let's acquire not Larry Markkanen, who becomes their 4th best player, but someone who is like their 5th or 6th best player? You should consider that if it's on the table. I would certainly say like 6th or 7th or 8th. Like that's not going to cost you that's not going to cost you Case and Wallace to go out and get that guy. It's not even going to cost you Josh Giddey if you want the 7th best player in your rotation. I ultimately think what they're going to do is something like, and I was thinking about this while I was at the gym today, is wouldn't it be so if the Bulls were just so cheap and they wanted to get out of money before next season. And it would be so Sam Presti of, oh, like Lonzo's starting to run. Like we'll turn Davis Bertans into Lonzo and see if Lonzo can be anything for us. And so it's just like, yeah, there's redundancies there with Josh Giddey, but just like someone who is under contract for next season, maybe even it wouldn't shock me if they were the team that traded for John Collins, just to say, maybe he doesn't play a lot for us, but this is a salary anchor we could use in a trade if we want to, whose salary will be off the books by the time all these other guys are making this money. That's probably the move they make, which I think is fine. But I do have, if I'm distrusting something about them, I look at how they might be susceptible to bigger teams on the glass, or they could be tossed around on the front line if you're playing more of these physical teams. And then there's something about their offense that I just don't trust, where it feels like they could maybe use someone who's going to get up threes in more volume, or just an improvement, a spacing improvement over some of the Josh Giddey or Lou Dort minutes, in the sense of how our defense is going to guard these players, or even, and I think J-Dub is getting better here, but sort of in, not even in every level scorer, but in every level ball handler. And I've said this way too many times over the past few weeks, but like someone who has some half court jiggle and joggle to them.
I think one of the interesting things, and they definitely did this against the Celtics and have been doing it more. It used to be Williams would kind of run second units, and like it was always tough because, you know, SGA wouldn't be out there. A lot of times Chet wouldn't be out there. And so he's kind of overburdened in that role to begin with, and there just wasn't a lot of support. They're playing Micic a lot more and he's got the ball in second units. And like, I mean, he's not going to blow by anybody, but like, that's a point guard. And he is really like, there have been stretches where he is unlocking stuff that J-Dub just like couldn't, which is like, fine. It's like, you can't ask him to be, you know, a primary initiator with no support out there and expect success. So like there are still, even with this roster, because Micic just like was not playing, and now I think he really actually matters to second unit. So like that's all to say.
There's like zip and vim to what he's doing on and off the ball when you're watching him too. Yeah.
So like that's, I mean, good find. I mean, I really killed that acquisition. Just really like great timing by me, like right before he started to play a lot. It was good suddenly.
I also killed them for giving up too much to move up 2 spots and get Case and Wallace. And now I'm like, well,
yep. So much for that. I mean, we're just wrong across the board about the Thunder, basically. Like,
that's why you should listen to us.
Yes.
We're never right, but we admit it.
We'll always admit it. Doesn't part of you just want to not mess with this team at all and just see like what
you can't? I think reasonably you can't, but if you can move players who aren't really playing, like, you know, Davis Bertans, and then some of these youngsters who are just not, like, they don't even have a role moving forward. And if it's a lower end first, to get someone who might play for you, be your 7th guy in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think you have to look at it. I don't know who that is, but like everyone's assuming it, you know, you talk about it. It doesn't need to be a star was both of our points. And it's like, maybe it's but it's like, because Micic is playing, it's, well, even if Bogdanovic became available, is that someone you add? And the answer should be yes, because he's an upgrade over this. But I get the instinct of, we don't want to mess with this team right now. But that brings me back to my overarching question of, even if we don't want to mess with this team, can you envision them winning a title as currently constructive? And if that's the point of this entire fucking thing, the answer matters. And it matters because of what we just talked about with title windows. It's great to say, well, no, they'll grow together. You can't guarantee that. And the other thing I'll say, we've talked enough about Chet in general on this podcast. He is, I don't think it's being said enough that he's like the second best player on what might be the best team in the regular season team in the NBA. Yeah. But when's the last time a rookie missed someone missed their entire first season due to injury and just never had any injury concerns for the rest of their career?
I mean, why would you speak that evil into?
Well, I'm just trying to spotlight the point of, I mean, even Blake Griffin kind of had her checkered health bill, like probably earlier than you would have expected after missing
like his Simmons and Embiid.
Well, I'm trying to find the exception. Was Blake Griffin the closest thing to a recent exception?
Oh, because he was fairly healthy until he really wasn't with the knee stuff. Yeah, probably. That's we should research that. But yeah, no, point taken. It's rare.
And so that is, wrap it up there. Right now, how many teams would you pick in front of them to win the title this year without the Thunder making any changes?
I mean, it's the usual suspects. It's like Boston, Denver, and then you got to start like Minnesota is like maybe, and then who am I forgetting? Like Milwaukee's a maybe, although they can't beat the Pacers, so I don't know how they're supposed to win a title. Yeah, they're right. So all the way back to the original question, like the reason I would say the Thunder won't win the title this year is like they're just too young, and this just never happens. Like it's just
Right.
you always got to go get beat by the Denvers of the world in the conference finals, or maybe before that, before you really break through. So like that's a stupid argument because there's nothing like that actually addresses like the team itself. It's just like, well, based on historic trends, like you just don't do it this young. Like it's just not what happens. So like, I don't know which way that cuts as far as like, should they go get guys, get veterans or something, or just leave it alone and trust that in 2 years we won't be able to say they're too young because they've scaled up through several playoff rounds.
This is a roundabout way of definitively hedging, where it's saying, don't say the Thunder need to trade for a star, but don't just assume that they have all the pieces in place and that this thing is built to last or built to get over the top. It just doesn't typically work like that.
The other thing too is like, and we're just going way too far afield here, but like SGA is not, 22. Like this, he is right now, like this is about as well as a guard can play professional basketball.
He's going to come off his fun max eventually, as Brian Windhorst calls
Coming off the fun max eventually. And just like, it's, most of the other guys you can say, at least with Holmgren and Williams, like there's upside still to come, I think almost definitely. But with SGA, like maybe this cuts towards they should trade. It's like, this guy is great, like right now. And there's no guarantee that he'll be this healthy.
Who's in front of him on the MVP ballot right now?
Where is he on the MVP ballot?
Who's in front of him? I guess same question.
Just, I mean, you can have Embiid, you can have Jokic, and then after that's it. It's like,
honestly, I don't even know if you're gonna have to worry about games played where Embiid ends up, and then like Jokic just kind of had that weird rough stretch.
Yeah,
it might just be Shea. I haven't dug deep enough into it, but he is in the top 5, and he's not 4 or 5.
Right. No, that's right. Like you could talk about like Halliburton and Luka, I guess, but it's like it's Shea. He's ahead of those two guys. So yeah, no, like maybe as I'm saying, as we're talking about that, it's kind of like you have an MVP candidate in his prime. You're gonna wait to go get more talent around him. Like that's the plan. That seems iffy when you frame it that way.
You have another team that you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's going to be less scintillating than the Thunder, who are just so much fun to talk about. But so I picked the Clippers, and mostly it's just because I was thinking the other day about just like what's the West hierarchy? How are we organizing these tiers? And admittedly, like the Thunder kind of spurred me to this. So it's like you've got Denver sort of as its own group because like not only are the Nuggets really good, but they've done it. And then there's Minnesota and OKC. And then it's like, I don't know, it just have to be the Clippers after that? Or do you have the Clippers in like a clump with whoever you would like to throw up there? New Orleans, Dallas, Phoenix. I'd probably forget the Lakers are a little farther down. But so I wanted to do like a little update on the Clippers. So here's some of the fundamentals before we start talking about them. They're 20-12. This is as heading into January 3rd games. They have the number 4 net rating. Tied with Minnesota at plus 6.6. They're 7th in offense, 8th in defense. So they lost those 5 straight right after getting Harden. Since then, they're 17-5. That's the best record in the league. Plus 8.6. So obviously better than their full season. 6th in offense, 6th in defense. All their losses, except they got beat by the Warriors in that stretch, have come against like very good teams: Denver, OKC, Boston, the Pelicans. So like the Clippers are kicking ass against the teams they should beat. They're competing against the best teams because they've beaten a couple of those too. Kawhi has had stretches. He missed time finally, but like was healthy and was basically playing about as well as he's ever played. He's on pace right now, believe it or not, to set a career high in effective field goal percentage because he's making threes like crazy. Damn. He's like, this Kawhi Leonard is going to set a career high in something. He's on pace to, like, it's not like some guy that's just, on the upswing. Like this is a guy that has been in the conversation as like, is he the best player in the world? Like more than once. So that's and that's the key, right? Because if you're going to say, which I am, that the Clippers, I think belong like right below or maybe on the bottom end of the same tier as like Minnesota and OKC. It only is true if Kawhi is that guy, because if he's obviously injured, like we're just going to skirt the whole health question, which is the entire reason that neither of us, I think, believed in the Clippers being all that good this year. If he's not that guy, then it's like, well, you got Paul George and Harden, and neither of them have much of a playoff track record, and that's just not good enough. But if Kawhi is someone that in any given series can just be the best guy on the floor the whole time, then like I don't know what you're quibbling about with the Clippers. Like, what do they need? What you want a more switchable big? You want maybe
I mean,
like
that's like even
bigger
Zubac has been
wing?
one of the best rim protectors in the league
Right. It's
this
I
year.
mean, their numbers defensively with Zubats on the floor are just like, well, they're great. Like, so it's I don't know. The playoffs are different, and you can imagine him getting kind of, attacked in different specific ways. Like it's kind of the same idea of why Rudy Gobert has had playoff troubles after just being clearly the best defensive player in the league for several seasons. So I think the update needs to be, if the Clippers are healthy, like, and Kawhi is this version of Kawhi, they're absolutely like in that top tier, I think, or very, very close to it. Like you do what you want with Boston and Denver. I think they're kind of maybe on their own, but the Clippers are like what their most optimistic, like injuries aren't a thing, supporters thought they could be. And I was definitely not one of them. And I'm very surprised that like I've kind of come around at this point and am finding myself a little bit of a believer. But where are you on the Clippers? And then other than like maybe a switchable big that's better than Daniel Tice, or like some kind of trade you build around Norm Powell or Russ to get just something, like a bigger wing maybe. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I said to you that I can't bring myself to have impassioned takes on the Clippers despite knowing how good they've been.
Yeah.
I think because it's just, will you all be there and
Right.
available when the season's over?
Which is exactly what we said at the start of the year. So we're kind of weirdly in the exact same place, but I didn't expect to be in this place having to ask that right now.
They do feel better built to navigate that uncertainty, because now it's okay, 3 real stars. And if Kawhi's out, it's just so much different having Paul George and James Harden rather than just Paul George and maybe
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook, or, and vice versa. James Harden has adapted really well to playing with the Clippers too. I think that is something that surprised me. We were probably both either cautiously optimistic or cautiously skeptical, both, whatever, after the trade. He is still, I assume that it would work to some extent. It has worked far better. They've even started to find like some lineups where him and Russ just work together. And so it's like,
Right.
if they don't have to worry about some of these combinations, it just makes sense. That Terrence Mann, Zubac plus the big three lineup, gobsmacking opponents
Killing
by,
people.
yeah. And that's with Terrence Mann just not shooting well from three during. He's at like 17% from three since they lost those 5 straight games. I don't know what this team would need to cement its status. I could see I know you mentioned a more switchable big, but it's like they can kind of still top. Like, I think what they actually need is PJ Tucker from half decade ago. And so is that player, so
Yeah.
and it's not even as a mainstay, it's just to be able to pull that lever in the postseason. I don't know what player out there would fit that bill. Like, is it Najee Marshall? Does he come, like, is it something just on that type of a scale? I'm grasping this because I don't know who the actual player is that you go after there. And I'm also just wondering, if you are them, you're playing this well. And we just mentioned this with the Thunder. Why break up the good vibes? If you're the Clippers, are you more inclined to still do something because you've seen how this movie might end before? Or is it just like, well, this is a different level than we've really ever reached? And we have insulated ourselves a little bit against some disasters, that we do let this stay. Maybe they sign someone off the buyout heap later on after the trade deadline.
That's a great point. You would imagine that there'll be a very, like, all things being equal, there'll be a lot of guys that would rather sign there than other places. So they'll have a big advantage there. I think so. You mentioned the Terrence Mann lineup. That's like, it's plus 17.1 with the big three and Zubats. The one with Powell is plus 55.
Yeah, you mentioned, I was going to say that. You mentioned trading him before, and I'm like, he's playing so well. Why would you do that?
I know you wouldn't. So that answers your question. Is like, the last step in an exercise like this is always like, well, okay, so what should they be targeting, or like, what do they need? I think probably in this case, like, you just leave it alone. This is another leave it alone. We had 2 straight leave it alones because, it's not like I think if you have Leonard and Mann and George, like you can get away with Zubats like kind of being stressed a little bit, having to defend in space. You can work around that a little, I think.
Would you consider like a Dorian Finney-Smith, or do you not think that he could give you any minutes at the 5?
Always. I would always consider him. Yeah.
Man, Maxi Kleber, if he was ever healthy.
God.
Oh, would you consider, but again, like the stuff that it's where I don't want to give up. Now I have to look at their salaries because I'm at the point where it's, well, no, you're not going to trade Zubats and you can't trade. Well, you do have PJ Tucker's money. And so it's like, if you could get a guy where you're going to attach PJ Tucker to a pick and you're still keeping, man, you also have Plumlee's salary as well. So they can actually get some pretty pricey players in here. So where if like Max, look, the name I was gonna mention was, does Grant Williams do anything for you on this team?
Ooh, I mean that's your like matchup specific switchable playoff 5, right? Like that's the guy that you throw out there against the. I mean, I also think Dallas views him that way too. So it's like I don't know.
I think
if you're giving Dallas like Tucker,
they're quickly seeing that they don't have the other personnel to make that work, though, is what I think they're finding out.
Yeah, that's
the Clippers do.
That's right. Yeah, he would be more helpful on the Clippers than Dallas. That's right.
I am assuming this guy's untouchable, but if their pick is on the one first round pick they give up, which is that a 2030 pick? I think that they could still trade.
I think that's right.
I'll double check that really quick. If you just put that on the table, and you're Atlanta, do you consider, just because you're so cheap, giving up Jalen Johnson?
That's such a distant pick for Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson will be on his third contract by the time that pick comes due. I thought you were going to say like Draymond Green or something like that. If you're trying to get the ultimate switchable 5, that
you could get to the money if you went like a 3-for-1 without really touching the. Yeah, so it is I think they can give up their 2030 first round pick. I mean, Jalen Johnson would be perfect for this team. Jalen Johnson would be perfect for a lot of teams, but that's just like he's cheap, so you're not giving up any core players to get him. I know Bones Highland's not going to do anything for the Hawks. Is there like you could throw in some other type of seconds if you want to, like an Amir Coffee or something, just to like sort of wet their beak to see it. But if they're worried about, if they're tearing it down, they don't want to pay him, because I have no idea what they're doing. I'm just like, a 2030 first for Jalen Johnson. I don't know. And maybe the Clippers wouldn't do that, because how much does Jalen Johnson play when Ivica Zubac exists? Excuse me.
I think the Hawks are saying no to that. Well, if it's like an unprotected 2030 first,
say top 3.
I mean, the thing is, none of the Hawks executives making that decision will be there to cash in that pick. So why do they care?
All right, fair. That's fair.
That would be, yeah. That you, if you had like a lifetime contract as a GM, maybe you do that. But I don't know.
So we're thinking more like PJ Tucker and some seconds for Chris Boucher.
Yeah, or like. Or like you said, this is the case for a lot of teams. The Warriors have like 5 guys where this is true. It's like, just give me the several years ago version of this player and everything is fixed. Like Tucker from 2018 would just be like Rockets, peak Rockets. PJ Tucker would make the Clippers like insanely good.
Do you think and would you consider, does the 2030 and then money, does that get you PJ Washington?
What did Washington sign for? Like
3 years and 4. He's making $16 million a year, basically.
16 a year. Tucker in the 2030.
I mean, Tucker in a pick.
Charlotte, again, same thing. The Kupchak will not be there to cash in that pick, but like Charlotte should do that.
Kupchak is also, I feel like he's on a farewell tour and knows it. So maybe he does it just because
he's like, well, I mean, what is he doing though? What do you mean he knows it? Like what actions has he taken?
Like some of the comments he was saying when he was talking about the way that the PJ Washington negotiations shook out. I was just like, oh, this dude knows that his days are numbered.
Well, he has reason to know. He certainly should know that. Let's see. Is it your turn or my turn? What do you want to do here?
I have some quick hitter ones. I wanted to focus on the Bulls a little bit, who appear to be coming back down to earth. They are still above water since the Zach LaVine injury. Billy Donovan gave the latest update on him, and he's still on course to return soon. Since he's been out, I know Kobe White has cooled off. He's still been amazing overall. He's shooting over 50% on 2s, 38.3% on 3s, shooting at 80+% at the foul line. He's been still averaging over 20 points. This is not including the Knicks game from Wednesday night. Andre Drummond's been great, even in Nikola Vucevic's absence. I do think it helps him he is very, when you look at him going up against like any sort of team that can be fast or play athletically, he's still at a disadvantage, even with having Caruso, Javon Carter, Ayo, those guys in front of him. Patrick Williams has been at times a monster on the defensive end. DeMar DeRozan, there's very clearly a regression, but he's also still just been money in the clutch. Has this changed like your opinion of the Bulls at all? This stretch without Levine, the stretch that we've kind of seen them play without, their other guys, Vooch a little bit. Like, do you look at it by saying, and sort of knowing the history of the Bulls where, okay, we know what they should do,
Yeah.
but like the fact that they've been competent now, could they get to a point where if we flip Zach LaVine for someone who we deem as a better fit, maybe 2 or 3 players, and like perhaps our offense is, because the problem is still kind of their offense, by the way. They're 16th in points scored per possession since the Zach LaVine injury. And they've missed Zach LaVine at points just because of the stuff that he could do on offense. Do you still has what's transpired changed the way you think they should operate for the rest of this season and moving forward? Or not, you think if you were running this team, but at least opened an avenue to where you'd be okay with them exploring alternatives? Or is it still just, no, we're overthinking this, tear it down?
I think specifically Kobe White looking, so much better is the piece that, and Williams to a lesser extent, although like both, Williams has had plenty of runway and just has kind of been this guy for his whole career. I think those two guys make it a little more plausible to view, like, I think nothing has changed about you should trade Zach LaVine. I think maybe what you're talking about makes it a little more defensible to do, like, we'll call it the Toronto route, where it's like, we'll just get players back. We don't want 3 firsts. We would like guys that can get on the floor right now and like fill needs. I think that's more defensible, but I still look at it as like, take DeRozan, like he's going to be a free agent. You trade him. Like that is what it is. Cause if you're keeping him, you're saying like, we're going for it this year. And then we're thinking about like, I'm just like, we can't do this. You just did it with Vucevic. You can't double down and keep another 30 something that has led your team to nothing over the last several years. So like for just the financial, like contractual status of DeRozan says you have to trade him. LaVine, I think I don't know what the package is for him. I'd still rather get picks and stuff, or like really young guys and dead money that's going to come off soon. A deal for me. But I think to your point, like some signs of life, that's positive, at least opens your spectrum of opportunities for like, because you just don't know what's going to be on offer for LaVine. So you may have to take a deal that is like a little more player heavy than pick heavy. That makes what the Bulls are doing now makes that like a little more palatable. But I haven't seen enough to make me think like, if I'm running this team, I'm doing anything other than just like gutting it. I think like that's still the way to go for me.
I think I'm with you. And also part of the calculus here for me, and I don't really know what that's just one or the other, that OG Anunoby trade almost took out 2 theoretical Zach LaVine suitors in one shot. Because now that you have Quickly and Barrett, I don't know if the Raptors ever would have been interested in Zach LaVine, but he made a lot more sense on the previous iteration of the roster. Just like Zach LaVine, I think probably made more sense on the previous iteration of the roster than Knicks, just because they wouldn't have had to maybe give up as much picks to get him. And now it's, well, all we have is picks to get him. So even if you think he might be a better fit because they did lose some shot creation juice, it's just, well, we're not going to give up the equity it's taking to get him at this point because our best salary matching, because now it's Fournier and what you're using to get to Zach LaVine's salary, a player that matters.
And I think like, just to compare him to Murray, if you go get Murray as the Knicks, you're not foreclosed on getting someone who makes as much as LaVine does. But if you go get LaVine and then you have to pay Anunoby whatever you're going to have to pay him, and then you got to figure out Brunson and Randall, like you're not getting another like capital G guy. Like that's kind of it. Just because LaVine, his salary is so much greater than Murray's. Like, I just really hope the Knicks don't get, like, I hope LaVine is not that guy. I don't think he is. No. But like he better not be.
We've already lined up the plan. It's get Murray and then get Mikal Bridges or Joel Embiid. That's the master plan.
Bridges, and I know you said this, Bridges and Anunoby is a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Where does Bridges, Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, and DeJounte Murray, like, what does that do for you if that's what they want? And then you're going to have big X there.
Mitchell
I don't know.
Robinson's probably still there.
Well, he might need to go out in the Mikal Bridges trade.
Oh, yeah.
That we're predicting.
Well, he would, because, I mean, that is a nasty team. Like, those four guys are really good. I don't know. They're on par, like, talent wise with just almost anybody's top four, really, right?
I would assume they would have at least one of Josh Hart and DiVincenzo there still. Maybe even his Quentin Grimes is probably gone by that point.
You gotta have a big. I don't know who that big is, but like, that's kind of the easiest thing to go get, really. If you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4, like, just set.
I love Mitchell Robinson, but like what he does is going to be easier to approximate on the cheap than what Jalen Brunson does, or what even, Josh Hart does, and even what Julius Randle does, quite frankly, when you're looking at shot creation.
That's true.
Let's see. You had one more team, right?
Yeah, just real quick. I don't know if you've picked the interesting ones. I think I want to do a check-in on the Suns just real quick. 18 and 15 plus 2.1, 11th in offense, 13th in defense, like, all pretty solid considering the injuries that they've had. The one thing that, like, if you're looking for I don't know if it's an Achilles heel, because this team is not like a true contender right now, but like, their turnover issues, they're 5th most on offense and 5th fewest on defense. So they just, like, the possession game is not in their favor. So they have to, like, make up for that with shot making, which they can do. But they don't generate a lot of free throws. Like, they're kind of not winning the math in a lot of ways. KD, Beal, and Booker, when they're together, they're plus 25, making absolutely every shot they take. But this is like 120 some odd possessions. So, like, this is almost meaningless, because that's like 2 full games basically of them playing together if you adjust for, their actual minute totals. I just like the KD vibes thing that we talked about a little bit last week. Give me real pause. Some of the Beal stuff where, like, normally, let's imagine that the Suns had not given up what they gave up to get Beal. I think right now you would be saying, like, how do we flip this guy for depth and defense? Right? Like, because Beal seems duplicative. Like, he's not getting to the line anymore. The lowest 3-point volume of his career. He's clearly, like, kind of marginalized because you have 2 better on-ball scorers and shot creators ahead of him. So it's like, in any other situation, you would be thinking of ways to, like, diversify by trading him, but that's just, like, unthinkable right now because of what this whole team was put together to do, and, like, why it was put together and how much ownership factored into that. So they're just like it's a weird mix. And the KD vibes are really, like, I can't get over them. Something feels off with the team. And then, like, if you want to talk about it on the court, like, the reserves that they got that they're not paying anything are all pretty good. And I've been killing Yusuf Nurkic and just think he's like the piece that doesn't work, but, like, all the numbers are just, like, their defense is way better when he's on the floor. He's been really good.
Wrong about the talent downgrade going from, I mean, Ayton's been banged up this year, and Portland's a sort of a different circumstance, but Nurkic has been, I would say, noticeably better this year than Ayton was for them last year.
Another dead wrong for me too. Like, I still think it's fair to say, like, in the playoffs, is he going to get attacked in space, and can he finish anything around the rim when, the floor is totally open in the middle and he's just on the roll and has to catch and finish oversized? Like, he's still not good at that. But, like, so far, just the bottom line is he's been really good. So I'm kind of mixed on the Suns. I think the Beal thing is just, like, it's almost like it harkens back to one of the things that seemed most obvious at the time they traded for him, which is, like, I'm not sure you need this. If you're looking for another high-end player, like, why is it an offense only, smallish, shooting guard sized guard? And, like, why wouldn't you be trying to, like, I don't know, do something other than just get a third guy that can fill it up? So I don't know. I just wanted to look at the Suns, like, peripheral or underlying numbers and kind of see, if anything had changed from the narrative of, like, well, let's just wait till all these guys are healthy and then we'll evaluate them. We haven't really had enough of that yet, but just looking for anything interesting about them. And really the main thing is Nurkic has just been so much better than I thought. So I don't know how you want to go forward with that, but, or if you have Suns thoughts.
They were a team I want to touch on because I kind of think that we might be underrating the product that they have.
How so?
I'm just not concerned. So the thing that concerns me more is, will they lose the 3-point math on any given night rather than necessarily the possession math? Their turnover rate when all three of the stars are on the court, just because by adding, this is why you add Bradley Beal, by the way, is because you've now simplified the decision-making tree to where it knocks everyone down a further peg. And look, even when it's just Devin Booker on the court, they're about league average when it comes to turnover rate. And so I'm a big believer in Devin Booker, the point guard. He's gone through some peaks and valleys this season. I've been uncomfortable with Kevin Durant's and Devin Booker's defensive performance so far.
Yeah.
I don't know how that changes with Bradley Beal, though, back. And where like their offensive burden's a little bit lighter. And maybe the vibes are just overall better. And the reason you go out and get Bradley Beal, by the way, is because that trade package wasn't getting you anyone nearly as good as Bradley Beal if you just offered it in a vacuum.
That's true.
That's the thing I think we're missing here. And I think it's more prohibitive from the fact of, well, can we sustain this moving forward with the second apron stuff? But right now, my biggest concern for them is, well, I have questions, but like the biggest concern is, will all these guys just be available? And I think that's a question to some extent for every team. We talked about it with the Clippers. It could be that way for are all these dudes going to be available is a big question if you want to win the title in general, if you're Denver. It's just more of a risk here. And so that's top of mind. But aside from that, I mean, you look at Grayson Allen has been great for them. Have you seen the numbers, by the way, on the Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen, Nurkic, like Booker, whatever? Like, it's just,
I'm guessing that lineup makes all the threes because Gordon and Allen just haven't missed this year, basically.
Yeah. I mean, they have even let's even look at it this way. The Grayson Allen with Beal and Nurkic lineup, and then Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, plus 23.3 points per possession, per 100 possessions. They haven't even played 100 possessions just yet. There is some, when you look at the defense during the non-Beal version of it, so they're plus 25.6 when it's Booker, Gordon, Allen, Durant, and Nurkic. Their defense rates in the 92nd percentile. Opponents are not hitting their threes. But what I have found interesting is Phoenix's defense overall is about league average. And if that's going to be about league average, we are absolutely underrating the product here because of what they're going to do on offense, even if it's imperfect when they have two of their stars on the court, let alone three. And when you start to dig into their defensive performance, it's like, well, they're getting burned at the rim overall, especially during the non-Nurkic minutes. And like opponents aren't shooting the best clip from three, but they're still between 36 and 37%. That's not like some egregiously, it's different. You know, the lineup I'm just citing that was plus 25.6. Yeah, opponents are shooting 31% from three. That won't sustain. And so their concerns are, I think their concerns on defense with Nurkic are just not as prevalent as I thought they were going to be. And you still do have the Kevin Durant as your big card in the playoffs to use.
Yes.
If he proves it. And because Drew Eubanks has not been good. I think Chimezie Metu has given them some good minutes this year. We've seen Azubuike's given them some good minutes too. I'm not going to trust those guys necessarily in the playoffs. That is, aside from the health stuff, that has now become that in the 3-point math. I'm not going to lie. Maybe I'm like mathing that too hard, but that's just, you know, when you're not going to get to the line a lot in some of your lineups, if you're not going to get to the rim a ton in some of your lineups, and then you're not going to win the 3-point battle, makes me a little bit uneasy. But it's just, how are we cobbling together the rest of their rotation outside the top 5 or 6? And then I'm also just kind of wondering, well, if everyone's healthy, does that really fucking matter? Because like the top 5 or 6 guys might be all that really do matter.
What do you the Clippers parallels are kind of like shockingly apparent, you know, because it's like, well, the real question is, are they going to be healthy? And then figuring out like who the other 2 guys are around your big 3 really are the question. Like, so then I don't feel comfortable saying this, but I kind of like the Clippers better than the Suns. Who do you like more as like,
well, yeah, I think
who's going to advance farther in the playoffs, I guess would be if you had to bet.
If they're all healthy,
everybody's healthy on both teams.
I think you have to like the defensive buttons the Clippers can push more. And there's also just, it feels like they have different gears and levels to the way that they can play offense. When you look at their 3-point shooting, having that pure rim pressure guy in Norm Powell. Also just Nurkic is better when he has to finish around the basket and is like kind of getting the head start. But like Ivica Zubac just is just a different type of threat in that scenario.
I think
so. I feel a little bit better at full strength about the Clippers, but I also think that, and look, the Suns might have to fight to not get into the playoffs by way of the play-in, which that matters too, just because of how much ground they've ceded so far. I think I'm just at the point with Phoenix where I'm still very concerned, but let's not lose the plot here because we just haven't seen enough of, like, when the big three is on the court, they're just destroying people.
Yeah, they just have
turnovers aren't an issue
to beat literally absolutely anybody if those three guys. I think what's really wild to me as I'm thinking about the comparison is like James Harden stands out because he's the piece that is the reason the Clippers big three sort of fits together more cleanly because he's actually a point guard. Whereas like Booker is playing point guard and is a better player than James Harden in a vacuum. But I don't think Devin Booker is a better point guard than James Harden is. Like he's better at basically everything else, but Harden being there's no question that like he should bring the ball up and initiate the offense because that's just like what he is fundamentally. That sort of organizes the rest of the Clippers in a way that I kind of like. Just sort of from a feel perspective. Whereas with Booker, it's like, this is a little new that he's doing this. And, it's still not as intuitive and not as clean of a fit with Durant and Beal as it is with like Harden. Just there's no overlap really, like in terms of like what you're asking him to do with Kawhi and Paul George.
Right. So I think that's the bigger thing
but I'm trusting James Harden in the playoffs is the uncomfortable.
Right. I trust Devin Booker in the playoffs more than James Harden, but I also, there's a dynamic that's materially different to where, I mean, Kevin Durant is used to working without the ball, especially when you look at the Golden State Warriors era. Kevin Durant.
He loved it too. Couldn't get enough of it.
But like, there's just different ways that Kawhi and Paul George are going to play off the ball as opposed to Beal and Kevin Durant. Yeah. And I think that's like what makes it fit better to where, yes, James Harden he's a measurably better passer, but I think I'd frame it this way. The difference in either confidence or skill between Devin Booker at point guard and James Harden is smaller to me than the difference in skill or effectiveness of needing Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Those are your guys off the ball compared to Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal being the ones off the ball.
Yeah, it's going to be, this is like a comparison we should just like kind of monitor as the season goes on because there are such weird parallels between these two teams. I think that's going to do it though. Everybody who has listened, watched, rated, reviewed, subscribed, thumbs up, followed, told friends, told enemies, thank you. For those of you that have not done that, never speak to us again. Should we just get aggressive in the thank yous and just draw a line in this?
Or else?
Probably not. Probably
not. No.
If you haven't done those things, please do them because we're eternally grateful and appreciate all of the engagement, all of the suggestions, all the guest players, all the trivia, and just all the conversations. On Discord. If you would like to get on our Discord, the link to do that is in the YouTube and podcast description, as are all of our socials, as is the way to get some merch, which I understand there might be some new stuff coming. Maybe should I talk about that?
Carpet. The Hardwood Knocks carpeting will come to a retailer near you soon, except it won't. I have no idea how much it costs. It was a gift. If you have space though in your office, Granny, you would like a Hardwood Knocks carpet. Maybe we could hook you up.
Well, so when you show anyway, we could talk about. Could keep talking about the carpet, or should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I finish it? I thought it was a banner when you sent me the photo of it, and then you said something about a carpet, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. You don't roll around your chair on a banner. That's dumb. I thought it was going to be behind you, the big Hardwood Knocks thing with the astronaut on it.
No, there's like no place to put it that would cover up. But people it was funny. You said, what'd you say that was? I think the stickers you ordered are too big when I sent you a picture.
It's like what is it, like 5x6 or something, or 5x7 feet?
I have no idea. I have no idea what it was. People in Discord loved it, which people in Discord seem to love my like setup in my office, which is a nice change of pace because so many people think I'm like broadcasting from a closet and are making fun of it. And I was like, I get their shoes set up behind me, but like, does this look like a closet? Like, look at
Yeah, I'm just in a corner of my office. Mine looks more like a closet than yours. I just have a
window, so it's definitely not a closet.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the window does get in the shot sometimes. Pretty professional by me. Yeah, I don't have a St. Patrick's Day Danilo Gallinari jersey behind me, so you automatically win.
Or a T-Mac jersey, which you should, is like the T-Mac guy.
I probably should. I'll have to find something. Suggestions. Hey, Discord, give me some freshen it up suggestions, because these Warriors championship hats and my Draymond bobblehead and some books are kind of.
I want to do the lighting. I actually have right next to me lighting to do like have you ever watched like the YouTubers and they kind of have like the glow lighting and it's a little bit darker behind them? That's the other thing that my wife has just yet to do for me is like she needs to set up my lighting better, and she's supposed to be working on new designs for us.
Well, if she figures out the lighting, let me know, because I got some of those. We're going to use some of those LED strips for Christmas lights, and then it looked too shitty, and we used actual lights instead. So got those laying around, just ready for podcast studio improvements.
That's the goal for 2024 is to have the new designs up soon, and for Grant and I to brighten up not brighten up, but color it up,
class it up. Really?
Yeah, add some pizzazz.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I said everything I'm supposed to say, except for, as always, we're going to close with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.